Imagine waking up surrounded by people you know. You made a mistake yesterday. Maybe you stole food during a harsh winter. Maybe you attacked someone inside your own group. Everyone remembers what happened, but instead of sending you away, they refuse to let you leave. There are no prison walls, no steel bars, no locked doors. Yet somehow, your freedom is gone. Today, more than 11 million people are held in prisons across the world. We often think of prisons as a permanent part of civilization, but for almost all of human history, prisons didn't exist. So how did humans invent the idea of locking people away? The answer changes how you see justice itself. Because for most of your species' existence, the greatest punishment wasn't imprisonment. It was something much simpler. Being alone. Around 300,000 years ago, early Homo sapiens lived in small bands that usually contained between 20 and 50 people. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherers, including the Hadza of Tanzania and the Jughonsi of southern Africa, have found that survival depended almost entirely on cooperation. One person could rarely survive for long without the group. Food was shared, children were raised together, danger was faced together. That meant every member mattered. But it also created a problem. What happened when someone became violent? What happened when someone kept stealing food? There was no police force, no courtroom, no prison. Except there was a solution. In many small societies, punishment focused on restoring harmony rather than isolating offenders. Anthropologist Christopher Bentham, who spent decades studying egalitarian hunter-gatherers, found that communities often relied on public criticism, ridicule, or temporary exclusion to control dangerous behavior. The goal wasn't revenge, it was keeping the group alive. Because losing even one healthy adult could threaten everyone's survival. But here's where it gets stranger. The worst punishment wasn't death, it was exile. Imagine being forced to leave your camp at sunset. You have no family beside you, no fire, no protection from predators, no one to help if you become sick. For a hunter living 100,000 years ago, exile often meant a slow death. The punishment worked precisely because humans are deeply social animals. Our brains evolved to depend on one another. In 2003, psychologist Naomi Eisenberger at the University of California, Los Angeles, conducted an experiment known as cyberball. Volunteers believed they were playing a simple online ball-tossing game with other people. Then the other players suddenly stopped throwing them the ball. Brain scans revealed something remarkable. The same regions involved in physical pain became active during social rejection. Your brain treats exclusion as a real threat, not because of modern loneliness, but because, for most of human history, being rejected by your group could be fatal. That's not the whole story. As villages began growing around 10,000 years ago during the Neolithic Revolution, everything changed. Agriculture allowed people to settle in one place. Food could be stored. Land became valuable. Communities grew from a few dozen people into hundreds, then thousands. Suddenly, exile became much harder. A dangerous person could simply walk to the next village, or return when nobody was watching. The old system no longer worked. Society needed a new way to control people without killing them or driving them away forever. And that idea would slowly become one of civilization's most powerful inventions. One of the earliest written law codes came from the ancient Mesopotamian city of Ur around 2100 BC. Known as the Code of Ur-Nammu, it listed fines and punishments for many crimes. What it barely mentioned was prison. A few centuries later, around 1754 BC, King Hammurabi issued his famous law code. Again, prisons were not the main punishment. Instead, many crimes resulted in fines, forced labor, physical punishment, or execution. So if prisons existed, what were they actually for? In many early civilizations, prisons were simply holding places. A suspect might be locked up while waiting for trial. A prisoner of war might be confined until a ruler decided their fate. A debtor might be detained until payment was made. The prison itself was rarely the sentence. Except there was a problem. As cities continued to grow, punishments that worked in small communities became increasingly difficult to enforce. You couldn't publicly shame a stranger in a city of 50,000 people. You couldn't exile everyone who broke the law. And executing every criminal would eventually weaken the workforce that built roads, harvested crops, and paid taxes. Civilization needed a punishment that removed dangerous people without removing them forever. That idea developed slowly over centuries. The turning point came much later. In the 18th century, during the Enlightenment, Italian philosopher Cesare Beccaria challenged the brutal punishments common across Europe. In his 1764 book on crimes and punishments, he argued that justice should be predictable, proportional, and aimed at preventing crime rather than satisfying revenge. His ideas spread rapidly. Then, In 1790, the Walnut Street Jail became one of the first institutions to experiment with imprisonment as the punishment itself rather than simply a place of detention. The goal wasn't only to confine people, it was to reform them. But here's where it gets stranger. In 1787, English philosopher Jeremy Bentham proposed a prison unlike anything before it. He called it the Panopticon. The design placed a watchtower at the center of a circular prison. Prisoners never knew whether they were being observed at any given moment. Bentham believed that uncertainty alone would encourage people to obey the rules. Whether the design truly worked remains debated, but the idea transformed how later societies thought about surveillance, discipline, and authority. The prison had become more than a building. It had become a way of shaping behavior. Today, prisons vary enormously around the world. Some focus primarily on punishment. Others emphasize education, rehabilitation, or preparing inmates to return to society. Yet beneath those differences lies the same question humans have been asking for thousands of years. How do you protect a community from someone who has broken its rules? For most of your ancestors, the answer was exile. For ancient kingdoms, it was often fines, physical punishment, or temporary confinement. For modern societies, it became imprisonment. The building changed. The question never did. When you picture a prison, it's easy to imagine stone walls, iron bars, and locked gates as something timeless. But for roughly 95% of human history, none of those existed. The first prison wasn't created because humans suddenly became more violent. It appeared because human societies became larger than trust alone could manage. In the end, prisons tell a story that goes far beyond crime. They reveal the moment when communities became so large that knowing every face was no longer possible, and when justice had to move from personal relationships to institutions. The walls were built to hold prisoners, but they also marked the moment humanity outgrew the village.